Hi, my name is Seth Walker. I'm a senior UX designer with Adobe Research, and I get to talk to you today about content-aware fill for video in After Effects. When trying out this new feature, obviously your feedback is really important to us. Please make sure to hit up the forums and with any questions, share with us what you're finding, what it works for, what it doesn't work for. This is really important to help us develop this feature. So let's dive in. We've got this simple composition here with a number of layers, and we want to try to fill this transparent area in the center. To be able to access content-aware fill, we can right-click on the composition and click on Create Content-Aware Fill Layer. Or go to the Window menu and click Content-Aware Fill. In this layout, we've got it attached here to our right-hand side. We can drag this out and take a look at what we have in there. We've got a preview area, an alpha expansion, fill method, reference frame, and generate fill area. In this preview area, we can see that even though we've got a number of different layers in this composition, the results are only the transparency showing through across all layers. So even as I move each individual around, it's looking at the transparency across the entire composition. So it's not just a single layer that's affecting this, but all of the layers in my composition. Similarly for masks, works the same way. So whatever is transparent in my composition, we can see that's what it's going to be filling. Even if we do something like RotoBrush, again, it's whatever is transparent in your composition. So let's take a look at some examples. Here we've got a car driving down the road. In this next example, someone shot this with a sticker over the logo of the laptop here. We've got all these cars on this lower area of the beach here. We're going to take a stab at removing that. In each of these examples, we're going to use a simple mask to remove the object. So in this example, I've got just 3 keyframes of a very loose mask around the car and its shadow as it drives down the road. So if I change that to subtract, I've got a very simple mask covering the car, covering the shadow. If I open up my panel, I can see I get my preview of what's going to be replaced. I've gone ahead and created results with each of these, and while we're looking at them, I'll kind of talk through what each of them means. So object is something where we want to replace it in its entirety. We want to find whatever's behind that object and replace it. So if we look at some of the results we've got here, this one is pretty great because it's looking to just completely replace it, looking both before and after where the footage was and finding some result. So this is just one click, clicking Generate Fill, and this is the object replacement. The next fill method is Surface, and this is great for things like stickers and like the example of the logo on the computer we saw. But you can do it on any kind of footage. So when we try that option, what we see is that it really just takes what it saw in those first few frames and it tries to apply it as it goes forward. So we can see the dash on the road follows the car, stays in that same position all the way through the footage. The last option is Smooth Surface, and this is a very simple, very fast method of just filling in that area with a blurred fill. This is great for very flat surfaces like paper or a flat logo. We'll try this on some other pieces of footage. So let's try the smooth surface example on this laptop because it's a really smooth area and we can probably get away with very little effort here. And this smooth method is pretty fast. So we're going to subtract this mask. We can see with the preview we've got that tiny little area there because that's just the logo. You can see I've just got just enough keyframes to track this mask as we move through the footage. generate a fill layer. And as this is working, we can see a number of pieces in progress, and it's going to go through each frame, and then it's going to start rendering out PNGs for each individual frame. And once I hit generate fill layer, it's going to render a sequence of PNGs the length of the hole in my composition. All right, now that finished up, and we can see what it did is it added a layer right on top called fill, and it has the number of frames that are involved. And we can see that result looks pretty great, because really all it's doing is smoothing an area from each edge inside, and since that laptop back is very smooth, it looks pretty great. And this is 4K footage, and we can see we maybe want to add a little bit of grain back in so that it matches that footage area. It's a great simple way to remove stuff on simple flat surfaces like paper that have not a lot of definition. So what did it do? It created a sequence of images right on top that we can isolate and look at by themselves. If we want to find this in our project, we can reveal in our project, and it's down here in our composition, and then it's a fill, and it's a fill sequence in that composition folder. So each of these are stored on your hard drive. They're a ping sequence, and then re-imported and placed right on top without you having to do anything. So again, this is the results here. Now let's try doing some results with our car. Now we already showed a bit of the each object result, and we're going to put that layer back on. But what I don't like is this blue sign here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to pre-comp it into a new piece of footage. And then I'm going to add a mask with just a few keyframes to block out that sign as it goes across. And this is a great example for when we want to use the object fill method, because we want to replace it with what is behind it. And we're going to go ahead and click generate fill layer, and let's see what happens. Okay, we've got our results back. And again, it makes a fill sequence, places it right on top, and we can see even with just a one click, we got some pretty great results. So let's take a look at another example. We're going to use a couple different methods in this one because we're not quite sure what's going to work best in this situation. So I've got this footage, we're moving slowly in and out, and I've gone ahead and drawn masks around each of these objects. So I'm going to go ahead and make all of these subtract. And I'm going to show you some results. So I've gone ahead and done that. We get a pretty good result. And that's just going through the different fill methods and trying to see what the results give you. And for added fun, we can actually create just a fill of the arch being filled in with pretty good results. But we can see as it goes through the building, it creates this sort of residue or this cloning, which it's familiar to content-aware fill in Photoshop, where it's just pulling from not quite the right area. So in this next example, we're going to go through some ways we can guide the footage into what you want it to look like. In this sequence, we've got a car driving across a bridge, but we've got all this clutter. We've got these poles, we've got cars in a parking lot, we've got a car that's following it down the road, and we've even got rocks out in the ocean. I mean, they might look pristine, but we could also probably take a look at removing something like that. So what we've gone ahead and done is created the masks that we need. I go in and Click them all to subtract. So you can see we've got masks around the parking lot, the cars, the poles, almost everything that kind of clutters up that right side of the frame. We've even got a mask following that rock out in the ocean. But if we leave it up to Content Aware Fill, we might not get the result on this frame that we want. So what we do is create a reference frame, and that's this other button here. And what this is going to do is create a single frame that you can open up in Photoshop and edit and clone stamp and create whatever it is you need to do to make that look the way you want it to look. So after creating that reference frame, we're popped into Photoshop. And what we've got is all that transparency, that masked frame. And all I do is create a frame underneath it and go ahead and clone stamp in whatever it is I needed to fill. Now this took me a few minutes, took a little time. But what I do is I put it behind that original frame, so I'm not messing up anything outside the mask area, but it's behind it, and that creates what I need. So I save that, and I bring it back in, and when I layer it right on top, and now when I run Content Aware Fill, it's going to use that first frame, that frame where I told it what I'd like it to look like. It's going to use that and try to propagate it throughout the rest of the footage. Now you could make this frame at the first frame, in the middle of the sequence, or at the end. It doesn't really matter. It's just a reference frame for what you'd like Content Aware Fill to have it look like. So now I'll go ahead and unhide some of the results here. What we see is that it attempts to bring that footage all the way through the sequence. And what we end up with is a pretty good result. Now in this example, I did the rock separately. So I'm going to unhide that rock layer that I rendered out. And again, we're just creating simple masks, one reference frame, and we're able to achieve pretty good results. So just to recap our Content Aware Fill panel, we've got a preview area that shows what in our composition is going to be tried to be filled. We've got an alpha expansion, which is going to enlarge or decrease that mask. And oftentimes, if you're getting a poor result, you might want to try bumping this up a little bit. And then we've got the different fill methods, where object is going to try to remove the object itself and replace it with things that pass behind it as it's looking before and after the frame that it's currently on. Surface is trying to kind of replace it think of it like a sticker on a shirt. It wants to replace it with things surrounding it, and it doesn't move a lot. Smooth surface is just an even blending of the pixels of the hole to fill that hole back in. So it's great for pieces of paper and things with not a lot of definition. Again, you'll create a reference frame if you would like to create a frame that you can use to guide the filling as it goes through. And again, you don't have to put that on the first frame. You can put that anywhere in your sequence. And then Generate Fill gets it going, and you can see your progress. And we'd like to really get your feedback on this panel, how it works for you, how you find the fills that you create in your project. And thank you.